My grandparents always had a rule. If someone falls down the old well, don't pull them out. My grandparents never raised their voices. That was what made the rule stick. They didn't shout it, didn't wrap it in superstition or dress it up as a story meant to scare a child into obedience. They told it the way you tell someone where the fire extinguisher is kept, or which breaker not to touch because it will kill you. If anyone ever falls down the old well, my grandmother said once, standing in the laundry room with the window cracked open, you leave them there. She was folding towels as she spoke, aligning the edges with a care that felt excessive, her fingers trembling slightly as if the fabric resisted her. She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't need to. I was 4 the first time I heard the rule. I laughed because it sounded ridiculous, and because children are supposed to laugh at rules that don't make sense. You laugh to test them, to see if they'd break. My grandfather stopped me. He didn't raise his voice either. He didn't even frown. He just looked at me, the way you look at a dog that has spotted something dangerous and is already leaning forward, muscles coiled. You promise, he said. Not say you understand, not do you get it. I nodded. I promised. The well sat down the hill behind the house, half swallowed by weeds and thyme. Tall grass leaned over it, and thorny vines crawled across its stones as if trying to stitch it shut. The stone rim was cracked and uneven, like the teeth of a rotten mouth pried open toward the depths of the earth. I could see it from my bedroom window at night, a perfect black circle where the moonlight simply stopped, a circle of nothingness. I asked my grandfather many times why he didn't just board it up properly, nail it shut, pour concrete into it like people did in towns. It's best not to interfere, he said. Interfere with what? With what's down there. Just stay away. Yeah, well, Grandpa, we barely acknowledge it anyway, so it's fine. Unless I lean in extremely close, I can't fall down. He considered this for a moment. Good, he said. Then don't. If I walked close to the well, close enough that the air felt cooler around my ankles, I could sometimes hear water shifting below, slow and deliberate, as if something were pacing back and forth in the dark. Sometimes there was breathing, sometimes nothing at all. Once I heard my name. When my grandparents told me, they didn't ask what it sounded like. They didn't ask if I was sure. My grandmother just said, you stay away from it. If someone falls, you don't help them. That made sense when I was little. Rules often do. They exist in the same category as don't touch the stove and don't run into the road. As a teenager, though, a rule I could barely understand turned irritating. What if Sonia falls down? I demanded one afternoon. Sonia was my little sister. You don't help her out, my grandmother said. What, just leave her to die there? No, she replied calmly. You can talk to her, you can feed her, throw her things, whatever she needs, just don't pull her out. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. But she won't fall in, she added, looking at me then. She won't, Ilya. She said it the way people say it won't rain when they absolutely do not believe it. The farmhouse was relatively isolated, surrounded by open fields and stretches of forest that blurred into one another at the edges. Occasionally, tourists would cycle by, bright helmets flashing between trees, stopping to admire the quiet. None would go close enough to the well, though, which was fine. Years passed. I turned 22. My sister Sonia turned 17. I got her a kitten for her birthday, small, dainty, and white as snow. She called it Misha and would often take him out to the meadow and play with him. One day, I looked up from my book to see her standing in the doorway, eyes wide open and bloodshot. I raised my brows. Son? I didn't mean to. I fell asleep and Misha he fell. My mouth dried. Did you pull him out? No, she responded as her voice died down. He's too little to climb out. He can't. His paws are too small. I shook my head. I'm sorry. Sonia's brows dropped. They said someone, not something. It's a cat, Ilya. A fucking cat. What, if I just lowered a bug by a thread and pulled it out, would I break the rules? Rule, singular. She scoffed. I'll ask my grandma. I shrugged. I saw Sonia out the window walking towards our grandma, then guessed her response by the way her shoulders dropped. For the next 2 days, Sonia sat by the well, throwing food down and talking to little Misha. The third night brought in a terrible cold wind. By morning, the well was quiet. Sonia cried for a week. 4 years later, some girl ran away from home. We saw it on the news. Her parents had reported her missing. We didn't know why she ran away, but hoped some creep wouldn't take advantage of her. The chances we'd spot her were low since her town was 50 or 60 miles away from the farmhouse. And yet, a month after the news, I was upstairs and happened to glance outside and saw a figure, small and fragile. The figure grew as it went up the hill. I went down the stairs and darted out the door, stopping as my grandpa yelled out at her to leave. "You're trespassing," he blurted, but I could see that he was uncomfortable. She was wearing a yellow jumper and had dark brown hair. If it weren't for the jumper, we wouldn't have recognized her. "Please, I just need a place to spend the night. I'll be out in the morning." Something in her eyes demanded mercy, understanding. We didn't report her to the authorities because she told us that her father used to beat her and abuse her, and that she was planning to get out of the country and follow up on her dream to become a writer. She was likable, that girl, a year or two younger than me, and with a wicked sense of humor. It was the first girl I'd seen in ages since I dropped out to take care of my grandparents in the farm. A night turned into two, into a week. She'd help around and keep me company while I worked. She'd tell me short stories, and I would listen because I liked her voice. I never told her about the well, didn't want to creep her out, and in truth, I didn't want her to think I was a weirdo. I secretly hoped she liked me. One day, we went on a walk through the woods. As we passed the well, she asked about it. "Don't worry, it's nothing. Don't go near it, you can easily fall in." "Is it deep?" she asked, stepping closer to the well. A knot tied into my stomach. "Hey, easy," I said. "Hey, please be careful." She placed her hands on the rim and looked down. "It's not that deep. I can see the water below." "Don't. Please come back." My mouth was dry and my voice cracked a little. She shot me a curious look. "What, you afraid I'm gonna fall? Would you miss me?" "Dina, please, just come back. I've been warned about that well since I was a child. It's sinister. I've been told not to pull anyone who falls inside." She turned sober. "Is that true?" "Yes." A pause followed. I felt she didn't believe me, but didn't want to know anymore. I want to say she came back. I want to say she didn't trip and fall as if some invisible force had pushed her down. That's not what happened, though. I heard her gasp down there and then laugh nervously. "Fuck, Ilya. It's not that deep, but I don't think I can climb out. I may have sprained my ankle. Just throw me a rope or something." I stepped away. "Ilya? Ilya, you can't be serious." A rule was a rule. I was raised to follow rules. My throat tightened. I'll take care of you." I couldn't hear her answer as I rushed back to the house, telling my grandma what had happened in between sobs. I begged her to let me pull her out, as if her will could bend the rule. The next months were cruel and bleak. I would throw her food and clothes, even a pillow. I stopped throwing in things that were too voluminous in fear that she might stack them on top of each other and climb out. I willingly trapped another human being with hopes and dreams inside that well. Over the weeks, her voice hollowed out. I can't describe it. Deep down, I feel that the whole thing was a fucking hoax, and I just let her die without any reason. But I swear she started pausing before answering me, as if she was listening to something else first. Even her spirit, her presence felt different. You have to believe me, something clung to her down there. When we talked, it wasn't just the two of us. I'm not even sure how many intruders there were in our conversations. She would keep telling me stories, strange ones. She'd tell me of dreams she had, of death and rot, and once she told me she found a kitten. I even heard a faint meowing as she said that. That was the last time I visited the well. That was almost 3 years ago. Whatever was down there was surely fucking dead. A few minutes ago, I heard a knock at the door. It was around 7 p.m. and the sky had darkened enough for the porch light to be on. Through the kitchen window, I could make out a silhouette in the mist. Broad shoulders, head tilted down. The knocking came again, and a voice. "Hey, could you help me out, please? Please." I looked through the peephole to see a man around my age, uncomfortable and soaking wet. "Hey," I responded, my hand on the doorknob, either to open the door or lock it. I wasn't entirely sure. "What happened?" "My car broke down 1.5 miles away. You're the only house I can see, and, I was climbing up the hill to you guys and I fell down that well." He snuffled and wiped his face for the 2nd or 3rd time. I yelled so much until some tourist riding his bike pulled me out. I think I hurt my knee. I'm so fucking cold. My hand tensed up on the knob. What do you mean, fell down?" I absently asked. "Yeah, I fell down." He looked up.
and I could see that he was hurt and shaken. His eyes were red from the cold or the crying. I could have died.
I see you. You should have stayed in bed. Before I tell you this, promise me you won't look for it. Don't let your curiosity win, because if you do, it will find you, and it will ruin you. I was only 8 years old when my world shifted from the constant noise of New York City to a suffocatingly quiet small town in New Jersey. My parents told me the move was for our safety. A brutal murder had occurred in the house next to our old apartment, and they wanted a fresh start. They wanted peace. Instead, they unknowingly traded a human threat for something far older and much more patient. The new house was deceptively charming. It had a white picket fence, a modern kitchen with granite countertops, and large windows that let the sunlight pour into the living room. But then, I saw my room. It was tucked away at the very end of a narrow hallway, a cramped space that felt less like a bedroom and more like a cell. There were no windows to let in the moonlight or the morning sun. It was just 4 walls, a dresser, and a heavy wooden bunk bed. The air in there felt thick, smelling of damp earth and old, forgotten things. That first night, after the exhaustion of moving had finally set in, I brushed my teeth, kissed my parents goodnight, and crawled into the top bunk. When I flipped the light switch, the darkness that rushed in wasn't normal. It was a heavy, velvety blackness that seemed to press against my eyeballs. I lay there for a long time staring into nothingness, waiting for sleep to claim me. But as the house settled into a deep silence, I noticed something that made the hair on my arms stand up. My breathing sounded wrong. It was uneven, a series of wet, gasping rasps that didn't match the rhythm of my own chest. I held my breath, my heart hammering against my ribs. The sound didn't stop. From the bottom bunk, just inches beneath me, the heavy, ragged breathing continued. Someone or something was down there. I wanted to scream, to fly down the ladder and burst into my parents' room, but terror had turned my blood to ice. I told myself it was just the pipes, or perhaps my imagination playing tricks in a new environment. I squeezed my eyes shut and prayed for morning, but the breathing only grew louder, more confident, as if it knew I was listening. The next night, it returned with a terrifying physical presence. At exactly 2 a.m., the gasping started again, but this time I could hear the rustle of the sheets below. Driven by a desperate, morbid curiosity, I slowly leaned over the railing of the top bunk. In the pitch black, I saw a faint movement. The heavy wool blanket on the bottom mattress was shifting, rising and falling as if a large animal was burrowing underneath it. I accidentally gripped the wooden railing too hard, causing it to emit a sharp creak. Instantly, the breathing stopped. The silence that followed was even more terrifying. It was the silence of a predator that had just realized its prey was watching. I retreated into my bed, lying perfectly still, and then I felt it. A sharp poke through the mattress, right into the small of my back, then another in my thigh. Something was beneath the bed, reaching through the padding and the springs, feeling for the shape of my body. It was exploring me, testing the weight of my limbs. When I felt a cold pressure against the back of my neck, the dam broke. I screamed at the top of my lungs. My parents came rushing in, throwing the lights on, but the room was empty. The bottom bunk was perfectly made, the sheets undisturbed. They looked at me with pity, blaming night terrors and the stress of the move. As the weeks turned into months, I stopped telling them. I realized that the thing in my room only existed in the dark, and it only played with me when I was alone. I learned to endure the scratching against the bed frame and the rhythmic poking through the mattress. I became a ghost in my own home, a hollow-eyed child who dreaded the setting of the sun. But everything changed on a freezing night in January. I had fallen asleep early, overcome by a flu that left me weak and delirious. I woke up in the middle of the night, but I couldn't move. An immense weight was pressing down on my chest, making every breath a struggle. The room was freezing, the air smelling of stagnant water and rot. The creature wasn't under the bed anymore. It was on top of me. Its breathing was slow and rhythmic. It was asleep. With a trembling hand, I reached out and touched its arm. It was bone-thin and covered in a coarse, wiry fur that felt like needles. I felt down to its hand. It had only 3 long fingers, ending in claws that felt like jagged glass. Panic gave way to a cold survivalist instinct. I slowly slid my pillow under its weight to maintain the pressure as I slid my body out from under it. Inch by inch, I climbed down the ladder, my feet hitting the cold floorboards. I was halfway to the door when a low, guttural groan echoed behind me. I turned back. 2 glowing orange eyes were staring at me from the shadows of the top bunk. They weren't animal eyes. They held an ancient, twisted intelligence. "Adam," the thing hissed. Its voice sounded like dry skin tearing. I didn't stay to hear more. I sprinted down the hallway and burst into my parents' room, hysterical. I grabbed my father's shoulder and shook him, screaming for him to wake up, but his body felt strangely light and limp. I turned to my mother, pulling at her hand, but she didn't move. That's when I noticed the wetness. I looked down at my hands in the dim light coming from the hallway. They were coated in a thick, dark crimson. I looked toward the bedroom door. The creature was standing there, its silhouette tall and distorted. It tossed something onto the floor at my feet. 2 wet, fleshy objects hit the hardwood with a sickening thud. They were human hearts, still twitching with the last remnants of life. My parents hadn't been sleeping. They had been hollowed out while I was escaping my own bed. The creature leaned forward, the orange fire in its eyes burning brighter. "Leave," it whispered. I didn't breathe. I didn't think. I ran out of the house into the biting winter night, wearing nothing but my pajamas. I ran until my lungs burned and my feet bled, never once looking back at the house that had devoured my family. It has been 20 years since that night. I have moved across the country, changed my name, and I never stay in the same apartment for more than 6 months. I tell myself that I am a man now, that the monsters of my childhood are gone. I tell myself that the world is a logical, safe place. But tonight, the air in my new bedroom feels heavy. The smell of damp earth is drifting from under the closet door. I've just turned off the light, and as I lay here in the dark, I realize my breathing sounds strange. It's uneven, it's gasping, and it's not coming from my mouth. It's coming from the pillow right next to my head, closer than it has ever been before.